Support your state trooper.
I'm Trooper Dave Levandusky of the Indiana State Police.
My name is John, middle initial W, Jackman. My PE number is 406. I initially was employed June 1, 1952. Retired April 20th, 1979.
John, how old were you when you started working for the Indiana State Police?
17.
You were 17, and what was your first job?
In quartermaster. I was a temporary replacement.
And what does that mean?
I was basically replacing a gentleman who was in the academy, and I understand if he didn't finish the academy, I didn't have a job. And the fact that at my young age, he did make the academy, and I became not necessarily a temporary replacement employee, I just became a temporary employee.
What made you want to become a part of the Indiana State Police?
Looking for a job.
Looking for a job. Did you know anyone that worked for the Indiana State Police that influenced your decision?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Who did you know that made you want to become part of the Indiana State
brother.
Police? Your brother?
Yes. Charles V. Jackman, yes.
What did he do with the Indiana State Police?
He worked in quartermaster.
Okay, so same position or same place as you. At that time, what was the hiring process like?
To my knowledge, there was none.
Okay.
As a temporary employee, there was background checks done after the fact. Interviews with people in the area where I grew up. Other than that, I'm not aware of what the process really was.
What did you do in this first, as a temporary replacement for quartermaster?
Well, primarily, you know, the receiving and shipping and the issuance, maintaining inventory and delivering supplies to the different posts at that time. They were not districts, they were strictly posts. And I also worked part-time in the automotive stock room, doing the same thing, but with different areas of equipment.
Where were you first assigned? Where was quartermaster at that time?
Quartermaster located at Stout Field.
Okay. And after you were a temporary replacement, what was your first big promotion that you got with quartermaster?
I became a stockman second class.
Second class. And what did you do as a stockman?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same thing.
Was it full-time at least?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least that was an upgrade, right?
Yes.
When you first started, what were the uniforms like for troopers?
Uniform for troopers, quite a few changes. There were no short sleeve shirts. So they wore long sleeve year round. Uniform material was 100% wool.
Okay.
There was boots and breeches for wintertime wear. There was not a fur hat, a winter hat, so to speak. Officers had their own. All weapons was, they were in the process of changing over from Colt official police to Smith & Wesson Model 15, which is quite a drastic change. But I think the biggest thing probably was the fact that there was no straw hats, realize that, just one hat. Probably the biggest thing as far as change in uniform was the addition of the short sleeve shirts.
Do you remember when that happened?
I can't specifically tell you a date. The original short sleeve shirts were made with a light blue material, the French blue material, same as the pants, with contrasting epaulets and and pocket flaps. Bear in mind there was no air conditioning in automobiles. Consequently, that lighter material became a problem, especially around the neck area. Perspiration caused discoloring, and with 100% wool, uncomfortable, as far as that concerned. Later on, that was changed to a short sleeve shirt, very similar to what they're wearing now, with the addition to a half moon lining in the back of the collar to get the material up off the back of the neck.
Oh, interesting.
More comfortable, which is kind of an innovation. I don't know where it's still present or not, but it certainly added a degree of comfort to the wearing of that particular garment.
Do you remember any complaints of troopers for what they didn't like about the uniform during that time?
Oh my goodness. One of the biggest, not the biggest thing, one was normal thing of losing weight or gaining weight, more gaining than losing. Primarily in the areas of boots and breeches.
Okay.
Everything was custom fit at that time, custom made to individual officers. However, the correct fitting of boots and breeches is difficult. People would gain weight, the boots would be too tight. Boots could be sent back to the manufacturer, and a piece could be added in the back of the leg, because they primarily would gain weight in the calf of the leg, so consequently they were
too tight.
Too tight, too difficult to get on, too difficult to get off. Or some just didn't like boots and breeches. Other thing, complaints, no, that wasn't necessarily a complaint, that was just kind of a situation that had to be addressed.
What were some big changes you saw at Quartermaster during your time with them?
Oh my, the big thing, so can we think back? No ballpoint pens. No NCR paper.
What is NCR paper?
No carbon required.
Okay.
We had a lot of we issued a lot of carbon paper in those days. No automatic type, no electric typewriters. Initially, when electric typewriters came to being, there was one that was in the superintendent's office, and then later on, of course, they became a thing. Manual typewriters. Other big things would, as far as office supplies, that was, as I think back, ballpoint pens.
That was the big one?
When we consider those as not an innovation, but certainly wasn't there.
What were you using when you first started?
When we were using, we issued ink.
Ink, okay.
And ink pens, what have you, and lead pencils, number 2, 2.5, 3, and hard. That was part of it. There was no such thing as like a felt marker.
Yeah.
What's called a China marker, or some people refer to it as a grease pen.
Grease pens, yep.
And what have you, with paper and what have you. Those are just some of the things. Scotch tape, as we know it now, was just coming to be, and glue was used. We stocked glue, glue dispensers.
Yeah.
So those are some of the changes that I can recall. Yes.
Did you ever have to do an audit with Quartermaster?
Absolutely.
How did those go?
An audit?
Yes.
We primarily worked our inventory. Now, our inventory within was at least once a year, or any time. And later years, we did audits, or we call audits, every time we received a new shipment. In other words, you balance your stock balances, so you're starting out with not necessarily a clean sheet, but an accurate count. As far as audit, what I think you're referring to is we referred to as showdown inspection.
Yes.
At that time, yes, that showdown inspection was, yes, I did that for a number of years. What have you. Was once a year. Originally, it was in the spring. Later on, it was changed to the fall due to First of all, weather was one thing. It was very unpredictable, and we had tried to be finished before the 500 race. Sometimes you ran into problems of getting around as more posts was added to be able to complete the circuit, what have you. But yes, that was of course everything was uniforms were stock made, so you got rid of the old and counted and see what you're supposed to have and order new.
So how did stock made uniforms work? Because you said they initially were custom made. When did that switch happen?
That was still in effect when I left.
Oh, okay.
So to go to stock sizing, when I refer to stock sizing, occurred, I presume, in the early 80s. What have you.
So up until the 70s, they were doing custom sizing for troopers. Okay. What position did you hold that made you most proud when you were with the Indiana State Police?
Gee, that's a tough question. I could say retirement, but that I'm being, I know don't really mean that. A position, I think, not necessarily a position, but initial contact with new recruits.
New recruits.
My initial contact with new recruits was even before they become a recruit. During the process, they would come in. We'd take some measurements, basically for waist sizes, so they would wear a belt during school. So consequently, I'd have a chance to meet those who were just very nervous individuals, anxious individuals, in a completely different setting, what have you. And I just felt like that was kind of a good thing to try to remember for later years.
And then did you see them at the end of academy when they'd come in?
Yes, yes.
And how did their demeanor change at that point?
Well, they're still nervous.
Yeah.
Some were, and some weren't, but what have you. But you realize that as you become, I sometimes felt like maybe I was kind of a familiar face. You know, I wasn't part of the academy. I wasn't a supervisor or supervisor to be. Perhaps maybe I was the go-between, so to speak. I felt that way sometimes, yes.
Now, during your time with quartermaster, what responsibilities did you have as you progressed?
Oh, as I progressed, the implementation or the writing of specifications, the follow-ups of items that was to be added to the inventory.
So new items that were coming in?
New items to be inventoried, or changing the procedures, procedures that the districts would implement in order to get their supplies, different forms, simpler forms perhaps, turnaround forms. And the other thing is the showdown inspection.
Were you in charge of inspection for all of quartermaster?
I was not in charge. I always had an officer assigned to quartermaster. To see I was in charge, no, I wasn't. but that was, I tried to implement changes to speed the process, to make it simpler, to make it uniform, so the officer would know what to expect, where to put this, where to do that, and move the process along to get it done.
Did you ever have any difficult situations while you were with quartermaster that you had to deal with?
Probably most difficult situation was inventory and receiving officers' equipment that is deceased. That and those things, a job that has to be done. Realize that our part would be very small, but nonetheless could be very personal.
Are there any other stories that you'd like to share with us? Any funny things that happened while you were with quartermaster?
Gee, I don't know. That's I can think of one of a gentleman who is since deceased. He was a very forthright individual. We were issued originally a lightweight rubber boot for rain wear, winter wear. That particular boot was made in Indiana, made in Mishawaka, an Indiana company, very comfortable. They went out of business. That boot wasn't available. So consequently, in order to find something, I was able to buy a heavier boot. Well, this individual was issued one of the heavier boots. And then later on, there was another line that came around that was similar to the original boot. So he came down to quartermaster and he said he'd like to trade his rubber boots. Why? Well, you know, sort of him and haw. Actually, he sort of said, well, they leak. And I said, okay. I looked at him. So I said, which one leaks? He said, well, both of them leak. So I took them and went into the restroom and filled them full of water. And I said, come back tomorrow, Larry, and we'll see what that looks like. Well, he said, John, they don't leak. I said, okay. I did trade him in a way. That's funny things, and talking to see individual people bring up stories that most of them I've forgotten that are kind of humorous, what have you.
What was your favorite thing about working at quartermaster?
Payday. Maybe let me put this: quit time, lunchtime, payday. Let's be fair about that. Individuals. Individuals that you develop a relationship with, that you recall. I still do. I think about people that I met, and I refer to my brother making after he had retired, that he recalls having a dream about a gentleman who was very large, and he said, I woke up in a sweat. And this guy's name was Johnson. Some people may remember he worked out of Connorsville. He was very large. He complaining about his boots and breeches not fitting. And
after he retired?
My brother, I'd been retired for 20 years, and I still have similar circumstances like that. Not necessarily all bad experiences, but a lot of good experiences too.
Did you ever have any very different complaints that came in, anything that sticks out in your memory besides the raining in boots situation?
Not really. You know, I think probably one of the tough jobs is being fair to everyone. I say tough jobs. It's easy sometimes to say yes and tough to say no. If you say no, you need to have a justification. And by the same token, if you say yes, you need a justification. But looking at a situation where an individual may think they need something, they should have something, okay, sure, we can get that, but can we get it for everyone? Is it necessary for everyone? What are the budget constraints? You know, it's not just, yeah, here it is. Life isn't free, someone has to pay for this. What
were some changes you saw in things that were issued to troopers? Not necessarily their uniform, but different equipment that they received.
Different weapons, changing weapons, changing styles. That's different types of cameras. From my area of time, we went through about 4 different types of cameras in that period of time. I'd say, and the addition of a lot of equipment. For instance, when I came to work, there was no such thing as riot equipment, now as we know it now. There was no scuba teams, which adds another responsibility from quartermaster to maintain an inventory of those, as well as the responsibility of showdown of get that type of equipment available. But the advent of riot control and scuba was probably, as far as the individual equipment, was the greatest thing.
Were there any disasters or major issues that you had to deal with at quartermaster, like a wrong shipment coming in or anything along those lines?
Not an everyday occurrence, but yes, it did occur. None that I can. The original, I mentioned the the change of the short sleeve shirts to adding the half moon sateen lining, the original shipment that had been left out. Consequently, they were all returned to the factory for that to be added. That was, in numbers, that was kind of a big thing. Yeah. This is something we worked on. We tried to achieve something, and here they came in, and they were all missing. So consequently, they were returned and added.
What were some things that you learned about yourself when you worked with the ISP?
Learned about myself, you know. I try not to be that self-evaluating. I don't think I'm qualified for that. That you have to accept different. Every circumstance has a good side and perhaps a bad side, but try to look for the good side.
What did you learn about people in general during your time with the Indiana State Police?
People are wonderful,
but
they're not as nice as machines.
What makes you say that?
Well, machines don't have personalities.
This is true.
So you don't have to deal with individual personality. Just deal with the machine.
How did the world change during your time?
Different attitudes is probably individual attitudes. I think people as a broad spectrum are really more complacent. Mindset on people's upbringing has changed for some people, not for everyone obviously, but in my perspective I feel like it has.
What do you want people to know about the Indiana State Police?
That we are proud. We should maintain that bit of being proud, but by the same token, in order to be proud, you have to achieve. If you don't achieve, you don't have much to be proud of.
Do you have any words of wisdom for young troopers or people that are considering becoming troopers?
It's a great place to work. It may not be the most high-paying job, but one thing for sure, the bank always takes the check. The consistency, the camaraderie, as you, in later years, perhaps will appreciate more than you do in your younger years.
You brought a few things with you. Is there anything you wanted to share with us?
I have some of my original personnel papers.
Oh, do you?
This was my original, dated June 5th, 1952. Shows that I'm a temporary replacement. Now get this, you're sitting down. You want to hear my salary?
Sure.
Tough. A total of $210 monthly.
Monthly, okay.
Plus a $35 subsistence. It was never at that time. There was $35. There was some people did not get a subsistence. Some people got 35. Some people got 70. Troopers got 70. Mechanics, radio repair people got 70. I got a 35. So consequently, that was really $245 a month.
Now, what does a subsistence mean?
That's a good question. Primarily, it was designed for, as I was told, if officers was transporting a prisoner and need to feed the prisoner. I don't know how many times that occurred. However, that was one of the uses. For mechanics, they had to provide their own tools.
Okay.
Okay. For some in mine, I would travel to different districts or what have you and be overnight sometimes. That was what the purpose of it was.
So it was just a little extra for on the job.
Yes. There was controversy, so to speak, regarding the income tax of that subsistence. It did not show up on your W-2 form.
Okay.
However, as I understand, there was some controversy. People who did claim it, and people who didn't, and consequently was changed. Want to go forward here?
Sure.
Oh, my goodness. Let's go from June of 1952 to August. That's when I became from summer temporary to a regular temporary.
So that meant that the trooper or the recruit that was in academy completed academy,
yes,
and so then you went
he
from
was
replacement
hired.
to temporary.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, that's true. Still the same amount of money. Didn't get any raise. Now I'm going to fast forward to January of 1957.
Okay.
This says leave of absence for duration of compulsory military service. So I was gone for 2 years.
What were you serving with?
The Army.
The Army?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Were you in wartime?
No.
No.
No. No.
Was it part of the draft when you went over?
I was subjected to draft.
Okay.
However, and I had learned that you could join the National Guard, which I did after I was no longer draft exempt. And I was fortunate. I learned that you could join the National Guard, and if the circumstances was right when you were inducted, you could apply for active duty and take your rank with you. So I was able to do that. So
what was your rank when you were?
went in as a Sergeant E5 and served 2 years as a Sergeant E5 on active duty.
Okay.
Which was unfortunate. Want to hear about my pay raise then?
Sure.
My goodness, I'm up to $300 a month, plus 35.
So that still stays the same?
Yeah, oh, that stayed the same from what have you. Next one is January 16th, 1959. This is termination of military leave.
Okay.
Now, the good news, while I was gone for 2 years, I got quite a raise.
How much are you making now?
$365.
It's pretty good.
Well, I picked up a longevity. Back then, we got paid longevity pay. $20 for every 3 years, I think. I think that was the breakdown. Well, there was some other controversy when I got a promotion in 1961 to Chief Stockman.
Okay.
However, there was some controversy over my original pay was listed as $475. However, during that period of time, there was a part of state government called personnel, state personnel. And as I understand that, they had to back up my salary because they said I was making, no one was allowed to get a jump in salary on a certain percentage, and mine was too much. So they had to back it up $20. So I lost $20. And also the advent of PE numbers while I was gone.
Yes.
That's something that was came about either 57 or 58, and it was while I was gone. And the PE numbers, of course, designer started with the oldest employee alphabetically and came forward. My brother was 104.
Okay.
And of course, I'm 406, so there's no.
Do you want to know what my PE number is?
I'm going to guess 5,010.
I'm 9040.
9040. Time changes, yes. That's one of the questions when if I meet a young trooper, my first question is, what's your PE number? I'm not sure, so. And I I'm like sheepishly, mine's 406. No, there is no. No, you got to be kidding. Oh, there is not. Oh, that's not important. Or what have you. So, I do have a part of the special orders here that lists salaries at that time. And it's kind of interesting. And I'll just start at the very top. The salary for a major was $675, plus the 70 at the time. That's the top salary. The lowest salary was for a maid second class.
That's interesting that they were called maids.
$195.
Oh, that's
without, and they didn't receive the $35. There was only one maid who worked in headquarters.
Just one maid?
One maid for headquarters. The rest of it was just janitor. But that's quite a spread for crying out. get down there talking about what's troopers making now. First class trooper was 405.
Okay.
Plus 70. So that's some of the changes. What have you.
Now I saw that you had a few pictures. Are those pictures of you when you were starting off?
When I were younger?
Yes.
Yes, I just happened to be, gosh, what do I have here age-wise? 1960.
So you wore a uniform.
Yes, civilian employees were issued, if you're in headquarters or as a clerk at the district, was issued uniform, yes.
How was it different from what troopers wore?
No badge.
No badge, that was pretty much it?
Right.
And I see on your lapel, no weapons too, obviously. You have, it looks like a little scroll with a...
As clerical, as a scroll. If you're communications, you wore the sparks, what have you. That basically was the 2 years.
And how long did you wear the uniform? When did they stop demanding uniforms?
I don't recall. In the very early 60s, I think. We were able, in our situation, be converted to a work uniform, like a mechanic's laundry, because basically that was more practical for us, much more practical for the type of work we were doing.
And probably less expensive too, I would guess.
Overall, yes, yes. And of course the maintenance was included, cleaning, so that was whatever. 1974 at Dunes Park during showdown inspection.
Okay.
I'm basically looking at all of, we had a system where the uniforms were all hung on racks in certain ways, so we'd go through them and inventory them. That just happened to be a shot that someone took while at the Dunes Park district. This one, I have no idea what year it was. It was just in a package that when I retired, some people in PIO, I think they were trying to be funny. So who's this guy here? And he gave him away. But that's sort of my selection. It had to be in my folder, what have you. So,
do you have any other things you wanted to share with us?
Not really.
Not really?
What have you. That's of importance. I do have a little bit. I did receive a commendation from the FBI.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What was it for?
Well, if I can find it here, the superintendent, and I found out it was strictly a farce. It had something to do with my assistance in a raid that occurred, that they appreciated the work that I did. And the farce was my name being John Jackman. At the time, there was the town marshal of Rockville, Indiana. Name was John Jackman.
Okay.
It should have been for him instead of me.
But they still issued a letter regardless.
I got a letter from superintendent that had just been passed, that he just passed down. So maybe being too many John Jackmans is not all bad.
You got a commendation from the FBI though, so that's something.
Well, yes, it came from the superintendent.
Yes.
But the superintendent received the commendation and passed it on down.
Sure, sure.
FBI, Farm Bureau Insurance.
Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
John, is there anything else you wanted to share with us? Any other photos or documents or stories?
Not at this point, no.
Right.
Not that I come up with.
Well, thank you so much.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, we're happy to have you.
I really do.
Good,
really
I'm glad.
Thank you. Perhaps in another 50, 60 years we'll do this again.